Caitlin Clark is more than just a basketball star. She's changing the WNBA's entire landscape, and it's only the beginning. Her talent on the court is undeniable, but Clark's influence is starting to ripple through the league, affecting everything from coaching decisions to team dynamics, and even how the WNBA positions itself for the future. Could Caitlin Clark be the next LeBron James of the WNBA? With a leadership shakeup in Indiana and whispers about her impact on the Fever, Clark's rise might just be the catalyst for even bigger changes ahead. Let's dive in and explore how Caitlin Clark is shaking up the game. You probably already know Caitlin Clark, right? The Iowa basketball sensation who's been breaking records left and right and setting the WNBA on fire with her insane talent. But here's the thing. There's more going on behind the scenes of her rise than you might realize. Recently, Breanna Stewart, one of the WNBA's biggest stars, dropped a bombshell about Caitlin Clark that's got people talking, and for good reason. It's not just about the game anymore. Caitlin Clark might just be changing the entire structure of the WNBA. Breanna Stewart talks about Caitlin Clark's impact. So, Breanna Stewart, one of the most accomplished players in the league, had a pretty bold take on Caitlin Clark's role in the WNBA's future. According to Stewart, Clark isn't just dominating on the court. She's also shaping the league's culture off it. And that's where things get interesting. It's not just about her scoring abilities or her leadership on the floor. Clark's influence is reaching into coaching decisions, team dynamics, and even how the WNBA is positioning itself for the future. If you think about it, Clark is starting to have the kind of impact that we usually associate with the superstars in the NBA. LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, the kind of influence that shifts the very landscape of a league. But while the NBA superstars have historically been the ones accused of pushing for coach firings or player moves, Caitlin Clark's rise to fame in the WNBA is making some wonder whether she's the next player who can do that too. How Caitlin Clark played a role in the Fever's big leadership change. Here's where it gets even juicier. The Indiana Fever, one of the WNBA's historic teams, has just shaken up their entire leadership. They fired everybody, the president, the general manager, and most shockingly, the head coach, Christy Sides. And this is after only 2 seasons. 2. After leading the Fever to the playoffs, which, let's be honest, was a major improvement considering their struggles before she came in, Coach Sides is out. But what caused this sudden shift? Here's where Caitlin Clark enters the picture. Clark's popularity in Indiana is undeniable, and her presence with the Fever has definitely put more eyes on the team. While the Fever made it to the playoffs, their postseason run was pretty short-lived, and some fans and analysts have pointed to Clark's overwhelming presence as both a positive and a source of tension. The Fever needed to make bold moves to ensure they were on the right path for championship contention. And let's just say, firing Christy Sides was the first step. The Fever's statement about the firing was as cordial as you'd expect in these situations, saying they were thankful to Sides for leading the team through a transition period. But here's the kicker. They also made it clear they were in pursuit of something bigger, another WNBA championship. And they believed making these changes would get them closer to that goal. How Caitlin Clark is shaping the WNBA's future. But that raises a big question. Did Caitlin Clark's influence actually play a role in the decision to part ways with Sides? It might sound a bit far-fetched, but when you take a step back and look at the situation, it's not so out there. I mean, when you're talking about a player with the kind of star power Clark has, she's got the ability to influence not just the media and fans, but also the folks running the show behind the scenes. Just like LeBron, James has been accused of forcing the hand of organizations with coaching changes in the NBA. Hello, firing of David Blatt and Tyrone Lue, anyone? There's a growing feeling that Clark might be doing something similar in the WNBA. Of course, no one's directly saying Clark had anything to do with Sides firing, but there's a vibe around the league that a superstar like Clark can, at the very least, raise the stakes for a team and its leadership. How big-name players have influenced coach changes in sports. It's not totally new territory when we think about superstar athletes influencing coaching changes. If you're an NBA fan, you know the drill. LeBron James has practically built a career on being involved in major organizational shifts. Players like Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, and Kobe Bryant all had a similar pull in their respective eras, with even some of the most well-respected coaches being let go due to their demands, or at least the perception that they had a hand in it. Take LeBron, for example. There's no denying the rumors that he had something to do with the departure of coaches like Paul Westhead in the early years of his career. It's almost a running joke now that if you're a coach in the NBA, your job might not be safe if your star player isn't happy. But here's where it gets interesting. In the WNBA, where the personalities and egos are a little less publicized, at least compared to the NBA, Caitlin Clark's rise is beginning to draw the same kinds of questions. Could Clark's rising influence in the Fever's locker room and within the WNBA have had a hand in pushing for a coaching change? Who could be the next head coach for the Indiana Fever? So now, with the leadership void in Indiana, who's in line to step in and take the reins? Here are some names that are starting to float around as potential candidates. And trust me, they've got the credentials to shake things up even more. Stephanie White. First up, let's talk about Stephanie White. If you've been following the Fever or the WNBA for any length of time, you probably know who she is. White was a key player for the Fever, helping them secure a championship in 2012. After her playing career, she transitioned into coaching, where she had success both in the NCAA and the WNBA. Most recently, White served as an assistant with the Connecticut Sun, bringing her extensive experience to the table. White is already familiar with the Fever organization, and she's got a strong connection to Indiana. She knows the team, the culture, and what it takes to win. If the Fever want to continue building on their success, White could be the perfect fit to take the team to the next level. Lisa Bluder. Another intriguing candidate is Lisa Bluder, who recently retired from coaching Iowa after a stellar career there. Bluder has worked closely with Caitlin Clark throughout Clark's time at Iowa, and that relationship could play a huge role in her potential move to the Fever. Clark's familiarity with Bluder, combined with her wealth of experience, could make for a dynamic pairing in Indiana. Bluder has been a proven winner in the NCAA, and her leadership has turned Iowa into a powerhouse. If she transitions to coaching in the WNBA, it could be exactly what the Fever need to unlock their championship potential. Plus, Bluder's style of coaching might complement Clark's skill set perfectly, making this a match that could pay huge dividends for the Fever moving forward. Curt Miller. Now, if you're looking for someone with a ton of WNBA experience, you might want to consider Curt Miller. Miller's track record as a head coach in the league is impressive, and he's worked with several teams, including the Los Angeles Sparks. He's also had a hand in coaching at the international level, including involvement with the U.S. Olympic team. What makes Miller stand out is his extensive coaching history in Indiana, where he was a head coach for the Hoosiers. His connection to the state and understanding of the basketball culture there could make him a strong candidate for the Fever, especially given the organization's focus on trying to level up. Miller's leadership could provide the stability the Fever need to build a sustainable, competitive team. Other factors to consider for the Fever's next move. In the mix of potential candidates, there's also a possibility that the Fever look outside the box for a fresh voice, someone who could shake things up in a way that aligns with the team's evolving identity. The organization has made it clear that they're focused on winning championships, so whoever takes the reins is going to have some big shoes to fill. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The Fever seem to be prioritizing a more traditional structure, especially with Caitlin Clark's presence looming large over the team. That means someone who can create a strong, family-like atmosphere within the team might be key to unlocking the team's full potential. After all, to maximize Clark's talents and bring the best out of the Fever, they need someone who can balance the team's competitive energy with the kind of leadership that keeps everyone grounded. Caitlin Clark's growing influence on basketball in Indiana. It's pretty clear at this point that Caitlin Clark isn't just a star in the WNBA. She's a force of nature in Indiana basketball, and her influence is only growing. As the face of women's basketball in the state, Clark's star power has affected not only the Fever's internal decisions, but also the broader basketball culture in Indiana. Indiana has always been a basketball state, but now, with Clark leading the way, it's getting a whole new level of attention. Fans are flocking to Fever games, and the media is paying more attention than ever. With this kind of popularity comes power, and Clark's ability to draw attention to the Fever means the team is more likely to attract top-tier talent, both on the court and in the coaching staff. The growing pressure and changes happening in the WNBA. And speaking of the Fever, they're not the only team undergoing major changes. The WNBA is at a turning point, and it's clear the league is trying to evolve quickly in order to keep up with the increasing demand for high-level competition and fan engagement. Teams are looking at new ways to build their rosters, develop young talent, and of course, secure championships. The Fever's changes are a direct reflection of this larger trend happening throughout the league. As more players like Caitlin rise to prominence, the WNBA will likely continue to see strategic shifts as teams try to keep up. Whether it's through coaching changes, player acquisitions, or revamped team structures, the league is gearing up for a future that's more competitive than ever. Mixed reactions to Christy Sides' departure from the Fever. As for Christy Sides, her departure has been met with mixed reactions. While she did lead the Fever to their first playoff appearance in years, the team's short-lived postseason run left some fans questioning whether she had enough time to truly build a championship contender. Whether or not her firing was a fair decision, one thing is clear: the Fever are looking for something more. And for a team with Caitlin in their ranks, they're under pressure to make the right moves to ensure the franchise's future success. As much as Sides' firing stings, it might just be the first of many bold decisions we see in the WNBA as teams look to contend for championships in the coming seasons. The spotlight is on the Fever, but Clark's influence is certainly not going anywhere. What's next for Caitlin future in the WNBA? Looking forward, Caitlin future is shaping up to be just as exciting as her present. With her growing influence on the Fever and the WNBA as a whole, there's no telling how far her reach could extend. Will she become a true franchise player, one whose influence goes beyond the court and into the front office? It's not out of the question. If anything, the WNBA's future is only going to get more interesting with Caitlin leading the charge. Do you think Caitlin influence will keep growing in the WNBA, or is this just the beginning of bigger changes to come? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And that's a wrap for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.